Now, relaxed male operates on 4 pillars that are needed for you to address to actually be able to have a very relaxed male type of lifestyle. And so we're going to be talking about that this week on episode number 33 of Relaxed Male. Hello and welcome to Relaxed Male, a podcast that helps men change their relationship with themselves. I am your host, Brian, and I am a men's life and mindset coach who is here to help you understand that you don't have to suffer at your own expense. You can live your dream, and I encourage you to set, then pursue your goals. So join me as I change the mindset and attitudes of men so that they can be the leaders of their families and their destinies. Amen. Hello and welcome to Relaxed Male. All right. So today we're getting back to the basics, kind of going off of what John from last week wanted to know and focusing more on what does it mean to be a relaxed male? When it comes to being someone who is able to take life in a relaxed manner and to not always be tensed up and always filled with anxiety and things like that. What are the points that we have to look at? And that's what we're going to be talking about this week. And I want to say thank you very much for if you're listening to this show. It is incredible that you've taken the time to listen to this and take the 30 minutes or so that the show will end up being and hear what I have to say and start trying to apply those thoughts and lessons and insights into your life. With the show each week, we have a question of the week. And this week we didn't have anybody write in. So we're jumping back over to Cora. And the question of this week is, does a bad childhood affect adulthood? And the response to that is actually, well, it depends. And it depends solely on one person. And that person is not who you would think it'd be. Because if you know anything about me, you've got to take responsibility for your dirt. You got to own your dirt. And that depends entirely upon you. If you had what you might have considered a crappy childhood, and honestly, most of us say that somewhere along the way, we had a crappy childhood. All right. It's kind of a normal occurrence to have something. I mean, I could sit there and talk about and try to point a finger to the fact that I have problems actually finishing stuff because I could easily blame it on my stepmom because it seemed like anytime I would show interest into something, if I did something wrong, that was the grounded item. That's what it seemed like she would zero in on, and that's what she would want to ground me from, which, I mean, being an adult who's had kids, I can understand where she's coming from now, but that caused me to have a very, reactive reaction, very reactive response to anything that was started really working. So anytime I'd start getting a little bit of, I'd say, quote unquote success, all of a sudden I would cut it off. I would stop it. Oh no, something's going to happen. I'm going to end up having it taken away from me because she would kind of the game that we would play, the battle that we would have is if I showed interest in something, say there was one time I was really into model airplanes. I wanted to have a model airplane. I even got one for Christmas. I got the engine, the servos, the body kit. It wasn't an all wood already put together. I had to take the little pieces of balsa wood and make out the wings and build the jig to hold the ribs together so I could get everything glued together and pieced together and get the body set up. And get everything lined in there. Well, I never finished it because I got up to a certain point and I forget exactly what I did, but being the little turd that I was, even at 14, 15 years old, I was still had my turdisms. And so she grounded me from it. And so as a means to show her, I would actually stop showing interest in that. She would try to ground me from my car. All right, well, fine. I'll just continue to walk. I wasn't going to show her that the grounding was, had an effect on me. It did. I mean, I was, mad and a wet hen when I couldn't work on my model plane. But my line of thinking or my lack of being able to complete anything wasn't my stepmother's fault. My lack of being able to finish anything, even in later life, was completely my fault because I chose to not do that. I chose to lose the interest. I chose to do the things that caused those different little projects to not finish. And that's one reason why this show has been able to keep going. I've done several other podcasts, and one that went pretty well. And about the time I started getting some really decent numbers, all of a sudden I was like, okay, I'm done. I stopped, didn't even announce that I was stopping. I just let it pod fade and let the domain go and all that. Same thing happened with, tried doing a podcast about podcasting. I started, got up to, episode 47 on it and just cut it off and stopped doing it because I was starting to get responses from people and things like that. And so I was avoiding, success. And I was trying to, at one time I was trying to point a finger. It's like, well, if this hadn't happened to me, I wouldn't have been able to do it. That whole line of thinking applies to even if you were in a horrible childhood. And my childhood was not horrible. It was a good childhood. But even if you had a childhood that was completely horrendous, and so you were in a family that was abusive and had drug abuse going on, and they barely fed you if they did, and if you made even the slightest noise, you were getting thrashed and everything else. You had even if you had a horrible childhood, that actual childhood is a childhood that your life is the life you were meant to live. And how you want to take those external events is dependent entirely upon how you want to look at it. You can either take the victim mindset and say it's all their fault and let that horrible abuser control your life and control what you do through the rest of your life. Even if they're not around, there's still people who want to look back at, I had this horrible life at one time and it's their fault that my life is no good. And that's completely bunk because one, that abuser may be in jail or may not even be in the picture anymore. And they're gone. You haven't seen them in 25, 30 years if you're that old, or maybe even 10 years. You still haven't seen them. You're trying to rely on putting the blame on another person because you're living in a house of squalor and you're not achieving your hopes and dreams is not that abuser's fault. It is entirely dependent upon what you chose to actually do with your life. And that actually is the key. You can choose to stop playing the victim. You can stop being a victim and go out and you can have the life that you actually want. And that whole line of thinking really will cause a lot of people some cognitive dissonance, which is that when you have two opposing thoughts in your brain at the same time, it's it's almost a physical sensation of having two thoughts that are in direct opposites of each other banging around in your head. It almost feels like you've got two rocks just bouncing off each other going, it's this thought. No, it's this thought. No, it's this thought. Because you have that whole line of that internal argument going on. I mean, it does. It's almost a physical sensation, which is in itself really interesting and a neat exercise to actually have with yourself. But the life you have is the life you were meant to live. And what you do with that life is completely dependent upon what you decide you want to do. If you want to be a victim, you're going to be a victim. You're going to continue to be the victim. You're going to be held back because you are a victim. That's one of the reasons why I'm always saying being a victim, no one respects the victim, because the only person who is being victimized by the victim is the victim himself. And trying to live life in the past causes you to not live life in the future, to look to the future and allow you to see the opportunities and the perks that come about from that, from you moving forward. Instead of holding yourself back, you can become the person. You can find the success you want. But first you have to actually accept the fact that, yeah, I had a bad childhood. There's some good lessons that I learned from that bad childhood. I now know how to recognize someone who is a abuser, and I can actually choose not to be with them. I can choose to not allow that negativity into my life. I don't want to, yeah, they may say they love me, but because they hurl beer bottles at my face every Friday night, that's not something I want to deal with. And so I'm going to leave. You can actually set those boundaries and be okay with those boundaries as long as you actually take the time to actually take control of your life in the here and the now. So, and that's pretty much what I responded back with over on Quora. And you can read the response that I made over at relaxedmail.com/33. That'll take you over to the show notes. So anyhow, now that we have the question of the week taken care of, it is time to jump over to the main topic. The main topic this week is actually the 4 pillars of the relaxed male. And relaxed male, if you've not heard any of the previous episodes, the relaxed male actually is a site that has gone through several different changes, in the past almost 4 years now. It started out as being it was going to be a drop shipping experiment, and realized that drop shipping is not something that I really want to do. And when it comes to drop shipping, you really got to have a good chunk of change just to be able to really start doing the advertising so that you interest the people to do the impulse buy, to do the drop shipping, and to get the product from China. So I transferred that over and closed down the store, morphed the domain over into a men's magazine. Men's magazine then morphed into helping men become better men. And from that, it turned into the angle that it is now, where it's a place to help men to connect with their sons so that their sons can become strong and confident leaders in in society. But to be able to do that, there are 4 pillars that you actually want to work on. And the 4 pillars are a man's mind, a man's body, a man's soul, and a man's community. Those are the 4 main pillars. And the reason why I have 4 and not 3 is because, yeah, you've got 3-legged stools. You can do 3 with a 3-legged stool, but there's for a good and well-balanced and successful guy, man, you have to have the element of community. No man is an island. And so there has to be those 4 pillars. Yeah, you could just focus on your mind, your body, and your soul. But if you want to just sit around in your house all day, you can kind of go out and you can make a little bit of a community. You still work on the element of community. That community, people can't live by themselves and honestly stay sane. It's just not something that is possible. So within the next 4 weeks, for the next month, I'm actually going to be focusing more on each one of those pillars. And that's what we're going to be talking about is, like next week, we'll be talking about man's mind. And the week after that, why man's body pillar is so important and man's soul is so important in the man's community. But as a brief overview, a man's mind is the element of learning. Man's body, that's health. That's the health area. You've got to take care of yourself. If you're going to take care of your family, you have to be able to be around to help your family. Man's soul, that is the creative side. That is you doing something to be creative. You have to feed your soul. If not, you become like what this week's blog topic is about, where you face things like burnout. If you're not feeding your soul, you're really drying yourself out, and you're setting yourself up to just lose the passion that you actually want. The men's community is not just family, which the family is part of his community, but it's the neighborhood, it's the city, it's the state. It's, it branches out. If you want to be able to change the world, you actually have to start with yourself, and to be able to change one element, it is dependent upon you, and you are the most important person in your world. So that's kind of where we are. And that's what the different pillars are about. And the reason, another way you can actually look at the pillars is looking at a table. You have to have those 4 legs. Yeah, you can do a little 3-legged table, but it's not as stable as what a 4-legged table is. If you focus on say mind, body, and soul, but you aren't working on the community, that community leg gets a little weaker, or you could even look at it as it's shrinking up. And when it shrinks up, that table can still stand with just 3 legs. But as life adds stuff to the table, eventually you're going to have to really start working put a whole lot more over on the side on the side that is actually a very stable side. So where you've got the 3 legs, you're going to be stacking a whole bunch of stuff there. It's going to get really messed up. It's going to get really cluttered as you try to avoid that weak corner. But eventually you're going to have you can only stack stuff so high, and you're going to have to work closer to that weak corner. And eventually, if you don't have that weak corner taken care of, you're going to have too much weight, and the table's going to fall. So you're going to have some type of disaster. Things fall over, you're going to have a mess on your hands, and you're going to have to pick it up. We've all know the problem with a wobbly table, and you have to find something. We usually will find something to cram underneath that leg to really kind of brace it up so that it becomes a solid, stable table. If not, you accidentally hit the corner wrong, and you're going to have your glass of beer or tea or whatever it is, or whatever fluid, they're going to jump up in the air, and you're going to slosh around. It's going to make a mess. So you have to have all 4 of these legs for a good, solid, firm foundation. And now you can focus in on all 4 of them at once, and you can work on getting balanced. Now, and there's going to be times where maybe you've got some health issue that comes about. And so you may have to do a lot more focusing in on that. But because you've built up your community, you can focus in on your health a lot more. Or if you can rely on the community that you've built up to be able to help you with your mind. And you might even be able to use your soul leg to help strengthen up the community leg. And the reason why I keep focusing in on community is because that seems to be the one topic that so many people honestly go off and forget. They focus in on their mind. They know they have to learn stuff. They know they have to work on their body. They have to get out, exercise, lift weights, do all this, go out, throw heavy rocks, go out hunting, go camping, do all these things. And they focus in on those 3, but so many people, especially in today's society with the internet connections and all that we seem to just completely forget that we have to have friends. One of the big things people complain about, I don't have near as many friends as I used to. Well, no, you don't, because you have to work on that community element. You have to build that community element. And so the community episode is going to have a lot of discussion in it. That's what we're going to be talking about for the next 4 weeks. These episodes may be a little bit smaller, kind of like this one is. This one, we're down, showing this. I'm showing recording 22 minutes, but I bet you once I get, all the spaces cleared out and things like that, it's going to be probably a little short 20-minute episode. And that's fine. I mean, I want to be able to just say what it needs to be said and get in, get out, and let you carry on with your life. Having, 2-hour diatribes of something that is inconsequential doesn't do you any good, doesn't do me any good. So anyhow, so there we go. We've got the 4 pillars. What they are is a brief overview, and listen in the next 4 weeks. You're going to be catching more of a detail, more of the philosophy of each of those different pillars that make up the relaxed male. And when that gets done, then we'll be continuing on talking about, the different topics that help you become the more relaxed male and start working ourselves actually into how you can take the lessons that have been taught so far and start applying them to helping mentor your son so that your son can become the man that you want him to be. So anyhow, all right, guys, you take care. If you like this show, I've got several different ways that you can actually leave a comment. You can leave a review over at podchaser.com/relaxedmale. Or if you forget that, you can go to relaxedmale.com/podchaser, and that'll take you right over to that, to the page. You can also go to relaxedmale.com/Apple, or go to iTunes, and that'll take you over to, Apple Podcasts, and you can leave a rating and review there. The rating and reviews don't help, me so much to climb up the charts like a lot of people think, but it does give social credit to, so that people can see that I've got, and gives the social proof that this can actually help people. If you like this show, I've got several different ways that you can actually, subscribe so that you get each new episode in your podcatcher of choice, from just a simple RSS feed that you can insert to, if you've got, Overcast, you can go to relaxedmale.com/Overcast. If you listen through Good Pods, which is a fairly new podcatcher out there that kind of adds a social, network effect, you can actually go to relaxedmale.com/goodpods, and that's with an S on the end. Relaxedmale.com/Google. If you happen to have listen through Google Podcasts, which is available on both Android and iOS. If you are using some type of Android phone, we've got you there also. You can go to relaxedmale.com/subscribe and find a way to be able to subscribe to the show. And I would be tickled pink to know that you've subscribed. If you have any comments or questions, or you have a question you'd like to have aired as the question of the week, please go to relaxedmale.com/contact. And I would love to hear your question. I'll respond to you, and if you give permission, I'll share it on air with the group. All right. So going ahead, and I will let you go, let you get about your day. And thank you very much for listening, and we will see you next week. So till then, you have a great one, and we'll talk next week. Bye.